So me, 31-year-old gay, and my fiancé, 32-year-old bisexual, have been together for 9 years, engaged for 1. We're meant to get married in 2 months. My time with him has been perfect, literally 0 complaints. Honestly, I didn't think I'd find someone who understood me the way he does. Then the world remembered it hates me and decided to ruin my life since I had it too good for too long. Last week, my fiancé sat me down and told me he wanted to discuss something with me and to keep an open mind. Sure. He said since we're getting married, he wanted to know if I would be okay with him having one night where he could sleep with a woman. My heart broke instantly. My dreams and hopes and plans vanished in an instant, and the marriage I was eager to begin was dead. At the very beginning of our relationship, when he asked to be exclusive, I told him there will never be anyone else in our life. Just us. No one's coming into our bedroom. There will be no cuck fantasies, no Eiffel Towers, nothing. I made it clear if he ever asked me for anything of the sort, the relationship was over immediately. There will be no conversation about it. It's done. He agreed. He said monogamy was the only thing for him and he doesn't want anyone else. Before I keep going, I do want to explain why I am the way I am. I won't give a lot of details, actually almost none, but I'll give enough to hopefully understand. Between the ages of 8 and 14, I was sexually attacked a lot by my only friend at the time. When I was 8, he was 15. He was the only other kid on the street. My mother was a drug addict and constantly cheated on my father, so she didn't notice anything. My dad was never home because my wife was awful to be around, and I was a kid who stayed in his room alone all the time, so he wouldn't have seen anything to be concerned about anyway. I tried to tell my mother once, but I couldn't even say it before I was yelled at and told to get out of her room, and I never tried to bring it up again. Fast forward to me being a not stupid child. I put pieces together and found out why my dad was never there to help me, why my mom didn't care enough to question why the aroused teen was taking me outside for hours, and when I got home, I just wanted to be alone in my room. I put all of my childhood issues on cheating. As a result, I have borderline anxiety and panic attacks whenever I hear people screaming, and depression. I have problems. After being with my fiancé for about 1.5 years, I talked to him about my past and why I feel the way I do about things, and he was very understanding, very comforting. Despite it being my story, I had to wipe his tears away a few times. I know he cares for me. I know he loves me and wants to spend our lives together. Back to present day, I am in a hotel room alone. Everyone I've told this to has said I'm crazy and stupid and need therapy. They don't understand how I can throw it all away over my partner being honest and open with me about something. He didn't actually cheat. He just wants to, LOL. He has said he won't do it. He needs me more than any feeling a woman can give him. I am his everything. He's called me twice since I started typing this and messaged me really sweet things. So I'm at a point where I don't know what I'm doing. I look at the future and I see him. My entire adult life, I've had the mentality of, if they want to cheat, they will. So he's asking me now, and if I say no, he will eventually do it anyway but won't tell me next time. That is where my decision to leave comes from. He will grow to resent me for denying him this thing he wants. I don't want to be that person 30 years from now, finding out my husband has had 50 affairs during our marriage with a bunch of women. When I am with someone, I'm with them. I don't look at other people. I don't entertain advances anyone makes towards me. I don't flirt with anyone else. I'm devoted in every way. People are making me feel crazy for wanting the same energy given back to me. I can't wrap my head around him wanting to kiss someone else, to be an inch away from them and smile, and then start freaking. I don't want to think about it, but it's all I'm thinking about. It's been almost 8 days since I left, and it's my only thought. I am losing my mind in a shitty hotel room, thinking about the guy I love freaking some random woman who doesn't exist. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I do want to say how amazing he is. He buys me flowers every Friday. He stands up for me when no one else does. He looks for me in every room. He makes me feel like I matter. He makes my grayest days bright and clear, and the smile I used to fake isn't fake anymore. He has never judged me for the things I do. He's never made me feel bad for having off days. He just makes me feel loved. My birthday was last month, and he made me a book filled with pictures of us he has taken over the years, with the last page being blank so he can add our wedding picture eventually. Above each picture was what he was thinking when he took it, and below is how he was feeling at the time. Part of being me is I need constant reassurance that he does love me, so I ask him those things a lot. It means everything to me. and it's my favorite thing I own. I'm just trying to say he really is great, despite this one thing. Now for an update. He said he'll do anything for me to come back. We can push the wedding back and just work on us, or we can call it off completely and just be together. He will never bring it up again, and he's deeply sorry he ever wanted to do it, and I believe him. Time changes people, though. I just want an unbiased opinion from someone whose life will not change whatsoever by my decision. They tend to be more truthful. I love him, and when I look at pictures of him, I hear wedding bells and I see the house he wants to buy with me, and the 2 kids he wants to adopt at some point. I don't want the rehashed, when trust is gone, it doesn't come back, or, you know the answer. Leave. I do trust him. I don't trust the things I'm telling myself over and over about what may happen in the future. He has never given me a reason to not trust him, but I don't know. Tell me the truth. Do I stay the course, go back to him and give him permission to sleep with a random woman, and come home to me after with a fake smile on, and live with him forever, go back to him, tell him no, he can't cheat, and hope for the best? Sorry if I rambled, I'm all over the place mentally. I've deleted a good 7 paragraphs, so this was worse. I really did try to make this readable. If more info is needed, just ask. Now for a few comments before the update, comment 1. Everyone I've told this to has said I'm crazy and stupid. Who are these people and why are they in your life? If that's how they feel, ask them how they would feel if their partner had one last cheat before they get married. Cheating is cheating, and I would evaluate if this is even the first time he's cheated or thought about it. Because I don't think those idiots realize that even if you weren't getting married, he is still cheating on you. Another choice you have is to tell him, sure, as long as I'm in the room, we can both have partners. Then show your fiancé who will be your partners, and just show the Piper Perry meme. Comment 2. Are you sure it's a random woman? To ask now, could it be that he's got someone in mind? I'm bisexual, been with my other half for over 20 years. Just because I'm attracted to both males and females doesn't make me want to step away from my relationship for a night to be with someone else. For what? Because being with a female feels different from being with a man? Nope, in a committed relationship, that is not a pass. Are they going to want to do that again in 10 years' time? Or maybe sleep with another man one last time? In any monogamous relationship, what he has asked is unacceptable and disrespectful. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So after spending a few more days in the hotel, I decided to meet up with my fiancé to talk things through. I was still feeling pretty torn, but I needed to see him face to face to get some clarity. We met at a small cafe we used to go to when we first started dating. It was a bit awkward at first, but we eventually got into a deep conversation about everything that had happened. He apologized again for bringing up the idea of sleeping with a woman, and said he never meant to hurt me. He explained that he had been feeling confused about his bisexuality and wanted to explore that part of himself before we got married. He assured me that it wasn't about wanting to cheat or be with someone else, but rather about understanding himself better. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, and it made me question whether I was being too harsh. We decided to take a break from wedding planning and focus on our relationship. We agreed to go to couples therapy to work through our issues and see if we could rebuild the trust that had been damaged. The first session was tough, but it helped us open up about our feelings and fears. I shared more about my past and how it had shaped my views on monogamy and trust. He listened and held my hand, and for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. During one of our therapy sessions, the therapist suggested we take a weekend trip together to reconnect and see if we could find some common ground. We decided to go to a cabin in the mountains, a place we had always talked about visiting but never got around to. The trip was a mix of emotions. We had some great moments, like hiking and cooking together, but there were also times when the tension was clear. We had a long talk one night by the fireplace, and he admitted that he was scared of losing me and that he would do anything to make things right. Back in the city, I started to notice some changes in him. He was more attentive and affectionate, and he made an effort to show me how much he cared. He even started going to therapy on his own to work through his feelings about his bisexuality. I appreciated his efforts, but I still couldn't shake the nagging doubt in the back of my mind. One evening, we were having dinner at home when he brought up the idea of postponing the wedding indefinitely. He said he wanted to make sure we were both in a good place before making such a big commitment. I was taken aback, but I understood where he was coming from. We agreed to put the wedding on hold and focus on our relationship. As the days went by, I started to feel more at ease with the idea of taking things slow. We continued going to therapy and working on our communication. I could see that he was genuinely trying to make things work, and it made me feel more secure in our relationship. However, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully trust him. One night, we were lying in bed, and he asked me if I had ever thought about what my life would be like without him. I hesitated for a moment before admitting that I had. He looked hurt, but he nodded and said he understood. He then told me that he had been thinking a lot about his own life and what he wanted for the future. He said he couldn't imagine a future without me, but he also didn't want to live with regrets. This conversation made me realize that we were both struggling with our own fears and insecurities. I started to think about my own desires and what I wanted for my future. I realized that I had been so focused on my fear of being hurt that I hadn't considered what would truly make me happy. A few days later, I decided to visit my dad. We hadn't talked much since I left home, but I needed some advice from someone who knew me well. We sat in his backyard, and I told him everything that had happened. He listened quietly, and when I finished, he told me that he had always admired my strength and resilience. He said that I deserved to be happy and that I needed to trust my instincts. This conversation with my dad gave me a new perspective. I realized that I had been letting my past dictate my present and future. I needed to let go of my fears and trust myself to make the right decision. I decided to give my fiancé another chance, but with some conditions. I told him that I needed more time to heal and that we needed to continue going to therapy. He agreed and promised to be patient and supportive. As we continued working on our relationship, I started to see some positive changes. We were communicating better, and I felt more secure in our relationship. However, there were still moments of doubt and fear. One evening, we were watching a movie when he suddenly turned to me and said, "I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But I also need to be honest with myself and with you." He then told me that he had been thinking a lot about his bisexuality and that he still felt the need to explore that part of himself. He said he didn't want to hurt me, but he also didn't want to live with regrets. This was a turning point for me. I realized that I couldn't change who he was, and I needed to decide whether I could accept him for who he was or if it was time to let go. I took a few days to think things over. I talked to my therapist, my dad, and a few close friends. I realized that I loved him deeply, but I also needed to prioritize my own happiness and well-being. I decided to have one final conversation with him to see if we could find a solution that worked for both of us. We met at the same cafe where we had our first date. I told him that I loved him and that I wanted to be with him, but I couldn't compromise my own values and boundaries. I said that if he felt the need to explore his bisexuality, we needed to find a way to do it that didn't hurt our relationship. He listened quietly and then said that he understood and respected my feelings. We agreed to take things one day at a time and to continue working on our relationship. We decided to postpone the wedding indefinitely and focus on building a strong foundation of trust and communication. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one for both of us. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for demanding my wife get a job while I struggle to keep us afloat? Long story short, I bring in $80,000 per year as our main source of income for our house due to my disabilities. It's barely enough money to pay our bills, but that's it. We don't really have much extra money to do things like vacations, family outings, eating out, etc. Because of this, we also don't have enough money to pay for things like renovations and upgrades to our home. I have been trying to get my wife to get a job for years, but she refuses to as she wants to be a stay-at-home mom for our 4 kids, even though I'm always home. We got into this massive argument some time ago in which I said I wanted a divorce and I wanted to be done. She said she would fix her issues and get a job. That was months ago, and I haven't seen her try to search for jobs, apply for jobs, or even interview. When I ask about it, she gets flustered and refuses to engage in the conversation, or gets upset with me for hounding her. I've had a part-time job before, but she saw it as extra money to do things with and spend on stuff. Whenever we get extra money from a family member for holidays, anniversary, it gets spent almost right away on various things that we don't need. I cannot even save it for things that I would personally like to get, or for needed things like renovations, needed home upgrades. Therefore, I am looking at getting a part-time job in which I cannot make more than $1,300 per month due to my disability restrictions. Would I be the jerk if I put it in a separate bank account and told her that she cannot touch this money as I want to save this money to do things to upgrade the house, buy a new computer, save for a new vehicle, etc.? To add, wow, didn't expect this to blow up. I just logged on, so I apologize for not responding for a while. I'll be reading comments and getting back to people shortly. To add, I've seen quite a few people questioning the $80,000 disability, or why I cannot make more than a certain amount of money, so please allow me to explain. I am a military veteran with PTSD. I do not qualify for full 100%, but since I cannot hold gainful employment, I have been granted individual unemployability, meaning I cannot work and am being paid as such. In addition, I receive Social Security disability insurance, and also my kids receive a portion of my Social Security disability insurance to help cover their expenses. Altogether, that equals a little over $80,000 a year. To add, even though this is Reddit and anonymous, I do not feel comfortable sharing any specifics about my location, ages of my kids, etc. But I will say that I do live in the US. I live in a state with high inflation and a part of the state with a higher cost of living than the other portion. Not my choice. And all 4 of my kids are under the age of 7, with 2 going into school this coming school year. To add, hopefully my last edit. I've had over 12+ jobs since getting out of the military 8 years ago. None have lasted more than 6 months. My inability to hold a job doesn't mean I am unable to acquire a job. It just means that I cannot hold on to it because of my disability. However, because of my inability to hold a job, it has been making it increasingly difficult for me to even acquire a job. I'm not some hypocrite trying to tell my wife she needs to work, but not continuously trying to do so myself. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You say that you are home all the time, but you have disabilities and work. Is it really feasible for your wife to work? Can you cover all childcare while she is working, including doing 50% of the housework, cooking, etc.? Won't your part-time job affect how much you can contribute to the household tasks? How old are your kids? I can't really tell if you are in denial of how much work there is to do in a household, or if your wife really just refuses to get a job. Comment 2. You are the jerk, YTA, to yourself. Get the separate account, then get divorced. She has no interest in getting a job and will drag this out as long as she possibly can. Once you're separated, look at your financials when you aren't supporting an adult mooch, and I'm sure you'll find saving money much easier when she has no access to anything. Now for the update, thanks for all the comments from my last post. So here's what's been happening over the past week. After our last big argument, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went ahead and applied for a part-time job at a local hardware store. I figured it would be a good fit since it's not too physically demanding, and I could manage the hours around my disability. I didn't tell my wife about it initially because I wanted to see if I could get the job first. Well, I got it. They hired me on the spot after the interview, and I started the next day. The first few days were tough. Balancing the new job with my existing responsibilities at home was more challenging than I anticipated. My wife noticed I was out of the house more often and asked where I was going. When I told her about the job, she was furious. She accused me of going behind her back and not trusting her to handle things. I tried to explain that I needed to do this for our family, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed off and didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. The next morning, she seemed calmer, and we had a more civil conversation. She admitted she was scared about the changes and felt like I was giving up on her. I told her that I wasn't giving up, but I needed her to step up and help out more. She promised she would start looking for a job, but I could tell she was still hesitant. A few days later, I came home from work to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of job applications. She had finally started applying for jobs. I was relieved, but I knew it was just the beginning. We still had a long way to go. In the meantime, I decided to open a separate bank account for my part-time job earnings. I didn't tell my wife about it right away because I wanted to avoid another argument. I planned to use the money for home upgrades and other necessities. Just like I mentioned before, one evening my wife found the bank statement for the new account. She confronted me about it and I had to come clean. I explained that I wanted to save the money for things we needed, not just for extra spending. She was upset at first, but eventually she understood my reasoning. We agreed to sit down and make a budget together so we could both be on the same page about our finances. As we worked on the budget, we realized just how tight things were. It was a harsh reality check for both of us. We had to make some tough decisions about what we could and couldn't afford. We cut back on unnecessary expenses and focused on saving for the things we really needed. During this time, my wife started getting callbacks for job interviews. She went to a few, but nothing seemed to pan out. She was getting discouraged, and I could see the toll it was taking on her. I tried to be supportive and remind her that finding a job takes time, but it was hard for both of us. One day, she came home from an interview with a big smile on her face. She had finally landed a job at a local grocery store. It wasn't her dream job, but it was a start. We were both relieved and hopeful that things would start to improve. With both of us working, we were able to save more money and start making some of the home upgrades we desperately needed. We fixed the leaky roof, replaced the old, drafty windows, and even managed to save up for a new computer. It felt like we were finally making progress. But before I get into that, I need to share a bit of backstory. My wife and I have always had a complicated relationship. We met in high school and got married young. I joined the military right after graduation, and she stayed home to take care of the kids. My time in the military was tough on both of us. I came back with PTSD, and it changed me in ways I never expected. My wife struggled to understand what I was going through, and it put a strain on our marriage. Over the years, we've had our ups and downs. There were times when we were really close and times when we barely spoke. But through it all, we've always tried to make it work for the sake of our kids. I think that's why it was so hard for me to accept that she wasn't willing to get a job. I felt like she wasn't pulling her weight, and it made me resentful. Looking back, I realized that my wife was dealing with her own struggles. She was scared of change and worried about how it would affect our family. She didn't want to admit that she needed help, and it took a toll on both of us. But now that we're both working and making progress, I can see that we're stronger together. So that's where we are now. We're still figuring things out, but we're in a better place than we were a week ago. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for cutting off my twin sister? After she tried to ruin my marriage with lies, for context, my twin and I are identical twins, but different heights due to childhood illness. I am shorter and more petite due to the illness, but a healthy 28-year-old woman. My fiancé, who is now my husband, is 29 years old. Backstory. My twin and I already had a complicated relationship due to her not respecting boundaries, expecting me to be available whenever she wanted and having tantrums anytime I spent time with my own friends. But then canceling our plans an hour after we were supposed to meet to spend time with her friends. This was a continual, ongoing issue throughout our whole lives. I should be available to her 110% of the time. Hate any friends I made, hate any guy I dated, I should only want to be with her. Q and my husband. My husband is an amazing, patient, handsome, fun-loving man. I could not ask for a better life partner. When we started dating, my twin reacted to him like all of my exes, interrogated him, assumed he was going to be hurtful for various reasons, hostile, etc. To clarify, my husband is not hurtful. My husband, knowing that being close to my family is really important to me, did his best to get my twin's approval. He jumped through all of the hoops and trials and even made friends, or so we thought, with my twin. He is now also really close with my parents and grandparents and sees them regularly, even if I am at work. My twin is also married, was engaged at the time, so we thought nothing of her now being friendly with my husband. One evening, while my husband and my twin were hanging out, roommates at the time, separate bedrooms, they had a good chat about life. When they went to hug goodnight, my twin pressed her breasts on my husband, said, "I appreciate what we have, whatever this is," and tried to kiss him. My husband rejected her advances and then called me immediately afterward. I was at work. I tried asking my twin what happened for context, and she just gaslit me about it. Days and weeks following that night, she started telling everyone that my husband is a deviant and child toucher because he married me, who looks like a child, even though I am 28. She has created more rumors since we don't live together anymore. She also had a meltdown right before my wedding and has been super petty since. I have now blocked her because she refuses to apologize for trying to sleep with my husband and spreading rumors. Am I the jerk? Now for an update. The people asking about her husband's thoughts on it. My twin essentially has told her husband nothing happened, that she did not hit on my husband, that my husband is lying, etc. Her husband believes her and is also pushing the rumors that my husband is a child toucher, etc. Her husband spent so much time trying to badmouth my husband at the family get-together that different individuals asked them to stop talking about my husband and me because they were getting so annoyed. It's also how my husband and I found out about the rumors. None of my other siblings believe or agree with the rumors that my twin and her husband have spewed. Honestly, the only people still defending my twin and her husband's actions are my parents. To add, I have definitely cut my twin and her husband out of my life. This is more of a vent post. For those asking about setting boundaries prior to this block, I had already had many arguments with my twin about her behavior and how I was done with it. She continually stepped over those boundaries. The final straw was her trying to sleep with my husband. I had asked her multiple times over the phone, with already limited contact, to apologize to him. During the family get-together, it was a final Hail Mary to get her to admit to her shoot and apologize, which she did not. This led to an absolute block, only to find out about the rumors afterward. Despite this, my parents want to try and mend things with my twin, which is an absolute no on mine and my husband's end. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She's taking her time, but eventually she'll think to say to you, I was testing him. I wanted to make sure he wouldn't cheat on you. He passed. Comment 2. She doesn't get to attempt to sleep with your husband and get to stay in your life. Why are you even questioning yourself? Now, for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. So, it's been a month since I last updated, and things have been pretty intense. My husband and I have been trying to move on from the drama, but it's been tough with my parents constantly pushing for reconciliation with my twin. They don't seem to understand that her actions were the final straw for me. About 2 weeks ago, my parents invited us over for dinner, saying they wanted to discuss something important. We reluctantly agreed, hoping it wasn't another attempt to get us to make up with my twin. When we arrived, my twin and her husband were already there. My parents had ambushed us, thinking that if we were all in the same room, we could work things out. My husband and I were furious, but we decided to stay and hear them out. The conversation started civilly enough, but it quickly devolved into a shouting match. My twin continued to deny everything, and her husband backed her up, calling my husband a liar and a manipulator. My parents tried to mediate, but it was clear they were more on my twin's side. They kept saying things like, she's your sister, you need to forgive her, and family is more important than anything. My husband and I stood our ground, reiterating that we wouldn't tolerate her behavior or the lies she was spreading. After that disastrous dinner, my husband and I decided to take a break from my parents as well. We needed some space to heal and figure out our next steps. During this time, we focused on our relationship and spent more time with friends who supported us. It was refreshing to be around people who genuinely cared about our well-being. One evening, while we were out with friends, I received a text from my younger brother. He had overheard a conversation between my twin and her husband, where they were plotting to escalate their rumors about my husband. They planned to spread even more damaging lies, hoping to isolate us further from the family. My brother was worried and wanted to warn us. This news hit me hard. I couldn't believe my twin would go to such lengths to ruin my life. My husband and I decided it was time to take legal action. We consulted with a lawyer who advised us to gather as much evidence as possible before proceeding. We started documenting everything: texts, emails, and any interactions we had with my twin and her husband. In the meantime, my parents continued to pressure us to reconcile. They couldn't understand why we were taking such drastic measures. I tried to explain that this wasn't just a sibling rivalry. It was about protecting my husband and our future. They still didn't get it, which was heartbreaking. As we gathered evidence, we discovered some shocking information about my twin's past. It turns out she had a history of manipulating people and spreading lies to get what she wanted. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern of behavior that had been going on for years. My husband and I were stunned. We realized that my twin's actions were driven by deep-seated insecurities and a need for control. One night, while going through old family photos, I found a picture of my twin and me from our childhood. We were inseparable back then, always playing and laughing together. It made me sad to see how far apart we'd grown. I wondered if there was anything I could have done differently to prevent this rift. But then I remembered all the times I had tried to set boundaries and how she had consistently ignored them. As we prepared to confront my twin with the evidence we had gathered, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. I was angry, hurt, and disappointed, but also determined to protect my husband and our life together. I knew this confrontation would be a turning point, and I hoped it would finally bring some closure. When the day came, we met with my twin and her husband at a neutral location, Our lawyer was present, and we laid out all the evidence we had collected. My twin was visibly shaken, but she still tried to deny everything. Her husband, on the other hand, seemed more concerned about the legal implications. He tried to negotiate, offering to stop spreading rumors if we dropped the legal action. But my husband and I were firm. We demanded a public apology and a promise to cease all defamatory actions. My twin reluctantly agreed, and her husband followed suit. It wasn't the heartfelt apology I had hoped for, but it was a step in the right direction. In the aftermath of the confrontation, my parents finally began to see the truth. They were shocked by the extent of my twin's deceit and manipulation. They apologized for not believing us and for pressuring us to reconcile. It was a bittersweet moment, as I was grateful for their support, but saddened by the damage that had been done. As we move forward, my husband and I are focusing on rebuilding our lives and strengthening our relationship. We've learned a lot about ourselves and each other through this ordeal, and we're more committed than ever to standing by each other. My twin and her husband are still in the picture, but we've set firm boundaries and are keeping our distance. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!